but we shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that we have laws that allow us to have firearms and that we can use them for self-defense. That hasn't changed. They've tried to change it, and it hasn't been successful. So it's important that we keep pushing at that to stop these things, because as we can see, you're more likely to be murdered in South Africa by other means than a firearm. Hey guys, it's Tim from Locked, Loaded and Lawful with Legally Armed. We've got Damien Enslin, who's the chairman of the South African Gun Owners Association, SAGA. And today we're going to be talking about firearms may not be the leading cause of murder in South Africa as claimed. So in recent years, the debate surrounding gun violence and its impact on the crime rates in South Africa has been a topic of concern. But through an analysis of the crime statistics, we've taken a look at things, and we've noticed a pattern. There's certain things missing out of it. There's certain things that need to be added. And at the end of the day, after all four quarters get added together, what we pick up is that firearms actually aren't the choice, the leading cause of murder in South Africa. So, Damien, thanks for coming on the show. So when you saw those numbers, I know we've had a chat about this before, and I sort of was a little bit in despair when I saw, okay, well, guns are actually being used a lot more than anything else. But once we've added things up and figured out that there were categories missing, it turns out that there's a massive difference in what's being told to us. It seems to be a purposeful manipulation of the stats, or maybe I don't know, is it a purposeful misrepresentation of the stats, or is it do you think just police incompetence?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity to come on your show. I believe that there's definitely manipulation of some of the stats and figures in the background. I mean, clearly from all the recent police interactions, the Amendment Act, clearly government slant is always anti-gun. And we know right from the beginning, the government has been very anti-gun right at the outset. So with either way, they can sort of slant it in their favor and be anti-gun, they're definitely going to take the opportunity. So I think there's definitely some manipulation of the figures, and it's always skewed, and it's always skewed in an anti-gun rhetoric, because that's exactly where government is coming from. They don't want us to own firearms. The Minister of Police has said this. Cyril Ramaphosa has said this on a number of occasions as well. They don't want private citizens owning firearms. So clearly they're going to always extrapolate whatever data and information they want to, that's in their favor, in favor of their rhetoric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, looking at the way they've sort of skewed things a little bit. When you look at the crime statistics on its own, each section, you get a section called frequently used implements. So, for example, this period is June 2022 to June 2023, and the categories they'll give is firearms, knives, sharp instruments, blunt instruments, body parts, stone, brick, and rock. So that's right at the top of the list is firearms, and you'll see the total murder is 2766. And then even if you go and add up knives, sharp instrument, blunt instruments, body parts, stone, and brick, you'll see that it doesn't come close to the 2766 number mentioned in the firearms. But when you look at the total murders that they give in the crime statistics for that period, for example, the total murders are 6,424. So you take those and you add them up, and you'll see there's a discrepancy in the numbers that I've classed it as other means. It's 1,819 murders that aren't mentioned in that. Now they can argue the fact that it could be people that were murdered by poison or other means. That's why we've called it other means. But the moment you take that other means and you throw that into the soup, you see that there's quite a difference in terms of murders with firearms and murders without firearms. So if we're looking at the first quarter of 2022 and 2023, that first quarter comparison, the total murders were 6,424. Murders with firearms were 2,766, and all murders that were committed without a firearm, so knives, bricks, whatever, poison, were 3,658. And now I've noticed in certain aspects of the crime statistics, there's a lot of vigilante crime coming up in place. So we've noticed that people might be stoned, but then they'll have a tire put around their neck and set on fire. And in every single category, from the first right through to the fourth quarter, I'll give you those numbers quickly. So the first quarter we've given, the second quarter, the total murders was 7,004. Murders with firearms, 2,808. Murders without firearms, 4,196. Third quarter, 7,555. Murders with firearms were 3,144. Murders without firearms, 4,411. The fourth quarter, 6,289. The murders with firearms were 2,629 versus murders without firearms 3,660. Now, I've been talking about this for quite a number of years as well, and I'm glad that that we're finally able to bring this to light, and I think it's something that needs to be brought out, and I'm so glad for organizations like Saga, like Legally Armed, Natshoot, Nightfur, that are all starting to look at the numbers and use these numbers to explain that we have a violence problem in South Africa.
Absolutely, Tim. It's clear that a criminal will use anything they can get their hands on, or anyone in any situation will use whatever they can get their hands on, and it doesn't matter what it is. If you outlawed all firearms, it wouldn't reduce the murder rate. Effective policing is what is required. If you may recall from the Wits report, that's what they said. Outlawing guns or trying to cut down on civilian firearm ownership is not the answer solution. It's effective policing. And it's clearly what the crime stats are really showing is that there is no more effective policing within South Africa, is that the crime is out of control, and government and the police seemingly cannot get on top of it, or cannot get control it at all. So it's an issue that's rampantly getting out of control, and as the police force gets smaller and becomes less able, or has no inability, or not able to actually combat violent crime anymore, crime escalates on all fronts, so to speak. And again, any criminal is going to put their hands on anything, or anyone who wants to do wrongdoing to someone else is going to use whatever instrument they can lay their hands on. You may recently see in the news, people getting knocked over by vehicles, getting stabbed. I was looking at an interesting article in the Netherlands, and knives, the amount of knives that are used there in the Netherlands, for criminal activity. So unfortunately, a criminal is always going to put their hands on something, and if a gun's not available, they're going to use something else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It seems to be the case. I've got on my personal YouTube channel, Guns Uncensored. I do bring up the fact that in the UK specifically, there's a massive not massive gun problem, massive knife problem. And I mean, I think they go far back as 1998 or 1996, where they took away the right to self defense with a firearm. I don't even think you can use a knife in the UK for self defense anymore. You have to kind of call the police and expect them to come and save you, and it's all good and well in places if you're a celebrity in Los Angeles in America, where you call the cops and they immediately come through. And I've seen videos like that where an actress has someone in their house, they phone the cops are literally around the corner. We don't have that luxury. The cops take from 45 minutes to never arriving to get to us. So the important thing that I think that people in South Africa, particularly gun owners, need to focus on is that we do have laws that allow us to keep firearms. There's nothing to be ashamed of in having a firearm. I was just watching a South African arms dealer who's got the correct permissions to deal in arms and ammunition in South Africa, he's got a whole arsenal and collection of firearms because he's allowed to. We're allowed to do these things. Not to say that I'm going to go and buy a 50 cal Mardeus and keep it in my garage and load it onto my bucky, but we shouldn't be ashamed of the fact that we have laws that allow us to have firearms and that we can use them for self-defense. That hasn't changed. They've tried to change it, and it hasn't been successful. So it's important that we keep pushing at that to stop these things, because as we can see, you're more likely to be murdered in South Africa by other means than a firearm.
Oh, absolutely. Again, I say the criminal is going to use anything, if it's a knife, a blunt object, whatever, brick, whatever. Criminals are not going to worry that they don't have their hands on a gun, for instance. They'll use a knife, they'll use a panga, they'll use an axe, whatever at their means and that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to our next topic of discussion. So now we know we've got the numbers. The numbers are on the screen. I've put them up for everyone, and people, I encourage you guys to use it, to repost this video, share it with your friends. But yeah, let's move on to something else. Tell me a little bit about Saga and what it is that Saga does for South African gun owners.
Yeah, so we're quite a well-established organization, been around for 38 years in South Africa in essence, and it was established under the old apartheid government's anti-gun laws in terms of the 1969 Act, and the apartheid government was trying to restrict firearms, and that's why SAGA was established. And our whole reason for being is to ensure that the law-abiding citizens' rights to choose to own a firearm for whatever purposes, whether it be self-defense, collecting, sport shooting, hunting, business purposes, is protected and entrenched. So our job on a daily basis is to assist South African gun owners and obviously our SAGA members to ensure that they maintain those rights to own firearms. And that they have the freedom of choice. So we do it in a number of factors. We obviously lobby government in that we meet with various politicians. You have to deal with politicians. They are involved in parliament and the parliamentary process. And you have to discuss issues with them. And obviously a lot of government is still currently very much anti-gun, as we know. So we try and change government's perception of gun owners. That is, we're not just people that just want guns for whatever reason. We need them for practical reasons, for whether it's sport shooting, cultural, whatever. So we try to change perceptions within government. We also try to change perceptions, and we have, I think, been very successful in the media, over the years, newspapers, the social media. We bring reporters down to the shooting ranges or talk to reporters. And show them again that we are not the problem. We are not the issue in South Africa. We actually can help solve the problem with the high crime rate in South Africa. So a lot of it is obviously getting media on sides, or at least getting them to understand or listen to us, and try and get a balanced sort of reporting within the media. Then obviously we have a lot of projects on the go. We constantly having projects with new shooters and new shooters orientation, or with people that haven't held firearms or used firearms before. Education obviously is part of it, and in safety. Obviously safety is obviously a big focus that we have. So we involved with a lot of projects on a regular basis throughout the country. And of course, with Women's Month coming up in August, we're going to have a lot of more projects, a lot of women's days, the ladies shoots again, focusing on the ladies, because unfortunately, the terrible reality of life in South Africa is that women are often the main targets. So we've done a really good job over the years is getting women to the fore, helping them, educating them, practical shoots, knowledge, getting some experience in that, and obviously safety and the law as well. Then other aspect is looking after all our members. We've got obviously members that have issues with the police with regards to licensing or other issues, competency delays, licensing delays, amnesty issues, and by and large we've been very, very successful in getting. We had hundreds and hundreds of members at one stage with issues, and we've reduced that by about 97%. We're very successful in lobbying CFR and the police directly. In actual fact, we've got a direct line of communications with CFR, and a direct captain and lieutenant colonel that deals with Saga complaints. We've got an online form that deals with that. So if any Saga member has an issue with or delay with their competency license, we have an online form that gets fed through to our office and eventually fed through to CFR, and we get a report from CFR on a regular basis on those issues. Not perfect, but it works very, very well. I say it's about a 97% success rate, which is really good. Then we help with organizations. There are many corporate members that are members of Saga, from sport shooting organizations to hunting organizations to collecting organizations to various businesses across the field, from farm dealerships to security companies, etc. There are obviously collectors that are members of us. So we're very busy on almost a daily basis with all these issues, helping various various members, customers, various members and that with the issues and that, to sort of assist them primarily, obviously, with firearm issues, but assist them with whatever sort of situations they may need assistance with. So we are very busy as an organization and have always been a very busy organization. And obviously what we have been trying to do recently is make sure that people know what we're doing and what we're about, and how busy we are in out there doing things for gun owners or anyone who believes in the right to choose to own a firearm.
Yeah, and it's important that I stress that it's anyone who chooses to own a firearm. Just because you're pro gun or you're okay with other people owning a firearm doesn't mean that you have to go and buy a gun yourself. So it's that's very important. So it's great to hear that Saga is doing a lot for people. We definitely need to blow your trumpet a little bit more, because it seems you're doing a lot of good background work. So the guys listening and watching can see Saga is constantly busy fighting for our rights in the background. So go to head to their Facebook page. You'll find them on Facebook. Their website is www.saga.org.za. Head over to their website. If you're not a member, we encourage you to join. Definitely take a look at Saga as an organization that can help fight for your rights, because they have been doing a lot of good work. I know I've seen Saga working in Parliament and in meetings, engaging with ministers and committee members like the now passed away Tina Jimmet Peterson. I think you guys had a very good working relationship with her, because she asked questions and tried to understand what was going on, which was very refreshing considering who was there before her. Let's hope that the next committee chair is as willing to learn and just listen to the various opinions in that surround firearms issues. And then as a side, I believe I see that some of your profile pictures, you are dual carrying some really, really nice looking Ruger Colt pistols. Tell us a little bit about that. I believe you're involved in an organization that does
I'm also the chairperson of the Western Shooters of South Africa, which is a cowboy shooting national organization, and that's the whole rationale behind that is obviously cowboy shooting in South Africa, and we have 8 clubs throughout South Africa who these clubs are involved in cowboy shooting. So in the main, we're using replicas or copies of 1873 Colts and lever action rifles and double barrel shotguns. So it's a great fun shooting sport, and it's something that's growing in South Africa, and we've got, as I say, clubs here in the Western Cape, in the Free State, in Pretoria, Joburg, Eastern Cape, in PE. We're trying to establish one in KZN, is one in George. So we've grown steadily, throughout the last sort of 10 years in that. And the part of the great fun is dressing up, obviously, in cowboy gear, making it as authentic as possible if you want to go that way. And that's part of the whole fun of it. The fun aspect of it is dressing up. And I shoot a pair of Ruger Vaqueros in 45 Colt, basically a bit of a modern day replica of the Colt 1873, the Peacemaker model, so to speak. But it's something that's really I'm passionate about and I really enjoy, and it's really great fun. And we often have people just come and watch us just for the spectacle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent some time with you guys on the range, and I can tell you, out of all the sort of shooting that I've done, I've been invited to sport shooting stuff. I've been invited to various different kinds of disciplines, IPSC, all that sort of stuff. Out of all of them, the cowboy action shooting was something that I really enjoyed the most. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of videos that I made up on the screen for you guys to watch as the video ends. But yeah, I think it's been really informative. And then in your professional life, I believe that you're an attorney. I think you're senior partner, or I don't know how does it work, senior partner at Matthews Ensland.
Yes. So yeah, it's an interesting background. So I've always been interested in firearm issues and sport shooting and that. Because of cowboy action shooting, I got involved with the accreditation of the organization back in 2009, 2010. And that was one of the first things I did, was apply for accreditation when Director Botma was still there at CFR. I was dealing with him to push the accreditation through for us as a dedicated sport shooting organization. So things sort of snowballing from there, in that I started getting people to ask me to do firearm issues and appeals and that type of stuff. To the extent now it's a large part of our practice. It's about 30% of our practice. So every single day I'm dealing with firearm issues in my practice within my business. So whether it be firearm license applications or competencies, or more serious things like Section 102s, or bigger matters where you're dealing with the hawks and seizure of firearms and that type of stuff. So it's very interesting. It's a nice niche sort of speciality, and it's very stimulating. The Firearms Control Act and its regulations it's so voluminous, it's so big, and even it takes attorney and advocates many years to understand it. So it's a stimulating field to be in, I think. And I really enjoy every day coming to the office because of these stimulating things. There's never a dull moment, and there's so much that you learn over the years about firearm dealerships and security companies and compliance and SERA and various regulations and that type of stuff. And so it's an interesting field. So it happened by accident, but it's now a large part of our practice in that. And yeah, it's really enjoyable.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so I mean, we recently also had another firearms attorney, you probably know him, Johan Martin, on the show. We were talking about pangolin vehicle safes. And I mean, taking that sort of thing to just an average attorney, it would cost you an arm and a leg, because they've got to go and peruse documents and check the law and research things, whereas going to a specialist like yourself or Johan, you'd have an answer quickly.
It's the practice that's the main thing as well. So you can read up, obviously, on lots of firearm issues, but it's the practice. So it's being actually involved in on a daily basis, which is a thing. So, all of us study law at university, but it counts for nothing until you actually get into the practice. So that's where it counts. If you're doing it on a regular basis and you've got experience, years of experience behind you of dealing with different situations, that's what really counts, I think, when you have a speciality. Is your knowledge from practicing that speciality over the years and that. So, when I do Section 102, I know exactly from the police perspective, what's going to happen. And I know exactly how to deal with it, how to file the statement, how to put the case across, correctly. And then when I'm dealing with security company, I know all the ins and outs of the various regulations and SERA and that. So I can advise the security company on compliance issues and that. So it's a practical knowledge that you obtain over the years only by being involved in the law and practicing the law.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so I think we're going to end it off at that. Thanks so much for being on the show. But I mean, while it's important to acknowledge that firearms are still used in murders in South Africa, it's crucial to recognize a broader context. And that analysis that we looked at reveals that firearms were only involved in approximately 40% of all murders. And it's important to note that other weapons such as knives, blunt objects, and even bare hands were responsible for the majority of homicides. And that's the main focus that we need to look at on this one. Is there anything final you'd like to say about that before we end off?
No, Jim, thank you very much for the opportunity. Much appreciated. And yeah, it's also obviously a problem with the illegal firearms. What we've been saying in Saga for many years is illegal firearms. Crime is committed, the vast majority of crime, in fact, all the major crimes are committed with illegal firearms. But anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity, Tim. Much appreciated.
No, that's great. Thanks for being on the show. Yeah, it's important to remember that criminals are the guys doing the murdering, not law-abiding citizens. And that's this week's episode of Locked, Loaded, and Lawful. Thanks, Damien and Saga for joining us. And we'll see you next week with another episode that's got some more information for you on about what's going on in guns in South Africa.